Hello everybody and welcome back to Today in the NBA, where we are going to be going over the free agency class and some of my free agency projections. First free agent we have is Russell Westbrook. I think he's either going to go to the Bulls or maybe to the Jazz. He's just a perfect fit on the Bulls, as they currently don't really have a point guard, and the Jazz don't either, and they could maybe use the veteran presence. Second, we have D'Angelo Russell, who I think is going to re-sign with the Lakers. But a sleeper for him could maybe be going to the Mavs. They now have the cap space after getting rid of Davis Bertans, and I think that he'd be a pretty good fit on that team. This is, of course, if they don't manage to re-sign Kyrie Irving. Next we have Fred VanVleet, who I think is going to either be a Spur or re-sign with the Raptors next year. With the Spurs, I think that they've just got enough money to throw at anybody, and I think that Fred VanVleet would be a good player for them, as he is someone that would be able to space the floor for Victor Wembanyama while also being a solid pick and roll ball handler. A sleeper for him, again, is to the Mavs. He's in the same boat as D'Angelo Russell there. Next we have Kyle Kuzma, who I think is going to be someone that is very heavily recruited by many teams. My favourites to land him currently are the Pistons, who just have the cap space, and he would fit on that team perfectly, being able to play the 3 or the 4, and the Kings, who just opened up some cap space by getting rid of the Richaun Holmes contract. With Harrison Barnes getting up there in age, I think that the Kings need a younger and more productive 3/4, and I think that Kyle Kuzma can definitely bring that to the table. Now we have a very interesting player in Dillon Brooks, who I don't think is going back to the Grizzlies. I think that what they said wasn't just a hollow threat. I think he's going to end up on the Cavs, Kings, or a sleeper, the Mavericks. He would end up on the Kings the same way Kyle Kuzma would, just being a good wing player, which is something that they need, just to give that team a little bit of extra aggressiveness and perimeter defense, which is something that they desperately need. I think that the Cavs, however, are my favourite team to get Dillon Brooks. They could get him on their mid-level exception. I think that Dillon Brooks would be a good fit on the Cavs, as he's a better defender than Caris LeVert and a better floor spacer than Isaac Okoro, sort of being the in-between of those two players, while also bringing a lot of aggressiveness to the table. Next we have Bruce Brown, who, just like Dillon Brooks, I could see going to the Cavs and the Kings. He would go to both teams for the exact same reason as Dillon Brooks, being a capable floor spacer, good defender, and someone who can handle the ball and maybe run a couple pick and rolls. And now we have Harrison Barnes, who I think is either going to re-sign with the Kings or go to the Cavs. The Cavs can get him on the MLE, he's a good shooter, good defender, and the Kings, I think, would re-sign him on a smaller contract than the one he's on, which would give them even more cap space. Now for some players that I think are going to be re-signing with their team, we have Chris Middleton, who I think is going to sign a long-term deal with the Bucks. James Harden, who I think is going to Philadelphia and not going back to the Houston Rockets, as they don't really seem to be going in that direction after they landed Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore in the draft. We've got Kyrie Irving, who I think will be going back to Dallas, as they don't really have much other talent or ability to acquire talent on their team. We've got Nikola Vucevic, who I think the Bulls will re-sign, but on a terrible contract. We've got Draymond Green, who I think will go back to Golden State, as he's the perfect fit there, and I don't think a team like the Detroit Pistons needs him. We've got Jeremy Grant re-signing with the Blazers. Now, I do think that this will be a terrible contract, as Jeremy's agent knows that Dame wants Jeremy re-signed, so I think he will absolutely milk it and get Jeremy maybe not a max, but somewhere near it. We've got Caris LeVert re-signing with the Cavs, as they just need more wing depth and wing production. And we've got Jakob Poeltl signing with the Raptors. Just like Jeremy Grant, I think that Jakob Poeltl is going to get a bad contract, as his agent will know that the Raptors really want to keep him, considering that they gave up a protected first for him. Now we've got some restricted free agent re-signings that I think are pretty obvious. Trey Jones back to the Spurs, PJ Washington back to the Hornets, Kobe White back to the Bulls, Paul Reed back to the 76ers, Austin Reeves back to the Lakers, and Cameron Johnson back to the Nets. Now we've got some restricted free agents who I don't think will be re-signing with their current team. We've got Rui Hachimura, Cam Reddish, and Matisse Thybulle, who I think will all find places somewhere else. I think all of them could end up on the Cavs or the Kings, as they're wings that are probably worth around $10 to $12 million each. Now we've got some other free agency signings of lower tier role players who I don't think will stay on their current team. We've got Kevin Love, Malik Beasley, Kelly Oubre, Josh Richardson, Jay Crowder, Seth Curry, Dante DiVincenzo, Yuta Watanabe, Gabe Vincent, and Max Strus. Now, I think the last two, Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, could end up back on the Heat. It just depends whether or not the Heat want to sign them to the contracts that they've earned this postseason. And that does it, guys. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.